This is a Rough Tiger production.
And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
I am up here, and I have something. I'm very reluctant to get into stories that are about crime because there are 3 million podcasts about crime, and there are tons of them out there. You and I both listen to a few of them, and those podcasts do a much better job of dealing with crime than I would ever hope to do. This is one case that I thought was. I wouldn't go so far as to say funny, but just sort of interesting in some of its details. It's not funny that people were hurt or killed, but you'll see why. So in 1993, we were headed to a town called Idar Oberstein. This is in the very western part of Germany, very close to Luxembourg and close to sort of the northern border of France. A woman named Lieselotte Schlenger. She's 62 years old, and she must have had at least a good morning. Someone had delivered her a bouquet of flowers either that day or maybe the day before. But she is found dead in her house, and she had been strangled by the wire off the flowers.
All right. Now, wait a minute. What was her last name?
Schlenger. Schlenger.
And what was the town?
Idar, ADAR - Oberstein.
So she was one of the Idar slingers?
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I need your fucking with me.
No, not the Idar slingers.
So this poor woman meets her end in an awful way. There are 0 witnesses, and there are no suspects. No one heard a damn thing, and there's no suspicious activity whatsoever besides the fact that there's a dead body on the floor. And the one thing that they find of meaningful evidence at the scene, there is I saw a picture, I forget whether it was bright orange or sort of, a brightly colored teacup right near her body that has DNA on it. And it's essentially the only clue they have at the scene. No fingerprints, nothing else. And this woman had been strangled. So they do run this DNA. It's 1993. This is really early stages, dark ages of DNA technology. And what you have to begin to realize is that this is a weird crime to be strangulation by a woman. Strangulation is personal. It's really up close. I would imagine, I've never done it, but strangling someone has to be really difficult to do, especially if the average woman is 5 inches shorter and 50 pounds lighter than the average man. I'm not speaking from expertise, obviously, but if you look at any crime shows or other crime podcasts out there, women use poison, women use guns, and strangulation and knives are things that they do not use because it's just very personal. So law enforcement is pretty confused by this female mitochondrial DNA, female DNA of a woman that is of East European or Russian descent. And we have this dead body, and that's really the only evidence they have at all. And then this case just goes completely cold. They have no idea what to do with it, so they set it aside, and it's an unsolved case. 8 years later, we're moving all the way up to 21st of March 2001. 61-year-old man in his kitchen in Freiburg, Germany, standing at his kitchen sink. Again, he's found strangled. His body's found laying on his kitchen floor, and the same woman's DNA is found on a kitchen drawer. And I'm not sure, it actually didn't say in the accounts I saw what was actually used to strangle him. But again, 61-year-old, this time a man, also strangled by this woman. And again, they're stymied. They have really no idea. Then after that, that's an initial 8-year gap between these first two murders. Then this woman's DNA starts to show up all over the goddamn place. So 5 months after this 61-year-old man is killed, DNA just is found on a heroin syringe. This 7-year-old kid stepped on it in a park in a town called Gerolstein. It's taken off and it's analyzed. DNA is there. A few weeks later, it shows up on a on a cookie. So someone had taken a bite of a cookie and then spit it out for some reason. And it was in the back of a caravan of a trailer that someone had attempted either to steal or maybe had broken into. But again, this woman's DNA is on this cookie because she spat it out. It's found on the site of a break-in at an office building. It's found in a couple different stolen cars in a town called Heilbronn. And then there's one more break-in here at a bar in a town called Karlsruhe. And apparently, by all accounts, it looks like she broke into this bar. Unclear what, if anything, she may have stolen, but she kind of hung out for a while because two bottles of beer were drunk and a glass of wine was drunk before she left. This just keeps going on and on and on. And authorities dubbed her. I mean, this crime spree goes on for a while, and it's basically sort of southern Germany, parts of France, and parts of Austria, where all these crimes are taking place. And someone in this period of time dubs her the woman without a face. And then later on, she's dubbed the Phantom of Heilbronn because crime after crime keeps popping up again to the same DNA. And across this crime spree, other DNA does pop up of what may be partners, but no partner DNA ever winds up repeating. So there's her DNA and this guy, her DNA and another person, and so they're just they're convinced that there is a female serial killer out there, but they are completely flummoxed by the whole thing. May 6, 2005. A man winds up shooting has some sort of dispute with a brother, winds up shooting him with a 7.65 caliber pistol, and her DNA is found on the casing of one of the bullets at this murder scene.
No.
Yes. Questions? Do we have questions from the gallery?
Okay, so a guy kills his brother,
right,
with a pistol.
Uh-huh.
But her DNA or her prints show up. Her DNA shows up. Shows up on the shell casings.
Correct.
Continue.
So over the course of this entire
is her name Miss White, Miss Scarlet, or Miss Peacock?
Right. No, her name is Colonel Mustard. So by the end of it, there is a total of 40 crimes where her DNA 40 crimes
40.
where her DNA pops up. Robberies, armed robberies, murders. It's a huge cross section.
It's a potpourri of crime throughout Europe. Okay.
But it's in this very focalized area, and Bavaria, nothing further into France. It's in this very, very tight little area. And so then you flash forward a little bit. This is tail end of 2005. So there is a unfortunate young woman. She's 22 years old. She is a new state police officer named Michelle Kiesewetter. And she is sitting in the front seat of a patrol car, having lunch in the car with her male partner, sitting in the car, broad daylight, and two people come up from behind the car, jump into the back seat of the squad car, and shoot them both. Kiesewetter dies. The partner does not die, but is very badly injured. Survives, has no recollection of the event, didn't see who shot him. Witnesses of this event report two men running away, but other witnesses report a man and a woman running away. So now the pressure has been ratcheted up even even more because a cop has been killed. And so a 300,000 Deutschmark reward is posted trying to find this woman, because DNA from the Phantom, as she's now being called, is found in the back seat of this squad car. So it's found again. So that's when they're like, okay, so this has to come to an end. And so they were convinced that with some money on the table, it was going to get wrapped up somehow, because this can only go on for so long. So just a
Question. What were they having for lunch?
Bratwurst and no.
Okay. All right, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So we have 3 people that are dead. We have a syringe with her DNA, leftovers of a cookie. There's a toy pistol at a 2004 robbery with her DNA. Just kind of sort of summarizing here, giving a quick summary of things. The bullet in the fight with the brothers. A stone was that was used to smash a window when one burglary was found on the stone. An optometrist store was robbed. Her DNA was on that.
An optometrist store.
Yep, was robbed of some money. There were about 20 other burglaries and thefts of cars between 2003 and 2007 in various towns in Germany, and then 2 in Austria. One other sort of strange one, one car that was used to transport the 3 dead bodies of Georgians that were killed in some other crime that weren't, was or maybe were tied to her. The bodies were found in this transport. Her DNA was found near these bodies, but I don't think they were alleging that she killed these bodies.
So near the bodies, but not on them.
Correct. A robbery DNA found after a burglary at a disused public swimming pool. This is in Germany as well.
Oh man, that's a gross phrase. Disused public swimming pool.
If you know what I mean. That's just an expression. No. A few cases of home invasion, apartment break-in. So yeah, her DNA is absolutely everywhere. And so, by 2006, 2007, she's, thought to be pretty much the most notorious serial killer in Germany's history, right? I mean, they have 6. Well, I guess those 3 bodies at this point they are attributing to her. So it says 6 murders, and so there's a lot of pressure on this to solve this case. Police in France had discovered there's this man in France who had gone missing in 2002 during this whole period of time. He I didn't see where he was immigrating from. He was trying to immigrate legally, I guess, into France, and had submitted the paperwork to do that. And then he was the victim of a crime as well. So 2009, they find his burned body, basically. They do not find her DNA on that crime scene, but in investigating his murder, a judge must have gone to his residence and gone through some of his paperwork and stuff, and realized that they had magically managed to they found the DNA of the Phantom on the man's application for citizenship, but didn't find it anywhere else. So what they realized was that this Phantom, this person, didn't. What's that? Have I completely confused you?
Well, does this person even exist?
You figured it out. This person does not actually even exist. What they figured out when that happened was that the regional state police in this area bought their crime scene materials from a medical supply company, and the DNA they were finding was of an East European woman who packed the cotton swabs. Over and over and over. I mean, so apparently there is a very important but distinct difference between having medical supplies that are sterile versus cotton swabs that are certified for human DNA collection. Because I would think that, the Band-Aids that you and I buy at Walgreens is it possible that there's fucking DNA in there? I don't know. But anyway.
I don't shop at Walgreens.
So anyway, after all this crap, they were panicked and convinced that there was some master criminal at work for something like 16 years until they realized, oh shit, it's just Bernice down at the factory. God damn it. Well, we just saved 300 grand.
Well, on the one hand, you're like, whew. On the other hand, you're like, hey, come on. Wash your hands.
Right.
Clean stuff up.
As we discussed on earlier episodes, wash your hands. So yeah, the like Bavarian police and other authorities bought their materials, their swabs from a different factory who had different standards, and so there wasn't DNA in them. So that's why this one little area was fucking things up.
Wow. So, because at first I was thinking that somebody was planting it to throw the police off, but then it was like, she's a killer. She's an arsonist. Wait, she works at the
right.
She's a puppet. She's a pirate. She's a cowboy. She's a clown. It's like, what do these things have in common? Well, they have nothing in common. So It's got to be. Wow.
Right. She's strangling geriatrics. She's shooting police. She's using heroin. She's like, right. This is a very interesting person.
That's a busy Saturday. That's a busy Saturday for anybody.
Yeah, she gets up really early in the morning.
Let's see, what do I have on my list to do today?
Death.
Strangles your lady next door.
Bratwurst.
That's a good one, Brian. I listen to a lot of stuff. I've never heard that one. That is
The Phantom of Heilbronn is what she's called.
The Phantom of Heilbronn. Okay. Is it my turn now?
You were up.
Okay, Brian. It's kind of funny that you mentioned all of these institutes of higher learning, because that's the subject of my story today. And some people listen to this and say, this is not a story. And you might say that, well, it's the story of how Brian eventually went crazy and leapt through the computer monitors to strangle Morris via Zoom, because this is the first edition of the college quiz.
Shit. Okay. I have to use my brain.
All right,
okay.
Brian. Kind of. Brian, this is my college rhyming game. And in this college rhyming game, you have to complete a phrase which reflects the college university name, the college or university's mascot, or the college or university's city. I'm going to give you 3 examples and then read to you up to 10 lines, which you have to complete in rhyming form. So this is kind of in the spirit of Burma shave signs, Cockney rhyming slang, and let's say Match Game 76. There's no offense meant to any of these schools or cities or mascots.
Well, we'll see.
I fully support higher education. It's just the rhyme scheme. Now, Brian, here's the way it's going to work. If you hit 7 correct answers before I finish the list, you win. If you get 6 or less, you lose. If you get to 6 correct answers, but you've done your 10 questions, I'm going to give you a lifeline, an 11th setup question to try to get to that 7th correct answer.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're 6 for 10 when it's over, I'll give you the 11th. Now,
it's 6 out of how many? 6 out of 50. Okay, the odds are pretty good. How many choices and how many questions are there?
There's going to be 10.
Okay.
And if you're at 6 for 10, I'll give you an 11th. And if not,
all right.
you lose.
I'm terrible at shit like this, but okay, go ahead.
Now, if you lose, we have to play this ridiculous game again on a future episode.
Okay.
If you win, however, you have to play this ridiculous game again on a future episode. So basically, nobody wins except me, because this amuses me. Here's your 3 examples. Okay, Brian. If you're at Michigan State and someone yanks your shorts down, you've just received an blank, blank, blank. If you're at Michigan State
State.
and someone yanks your shorts down, you've just received an
Oh shoot, Spartan. It's Spartans, right?
it is the Spartans, but that's not the clue you're looking for. I'll give you a hint. You're looking for the city for this example.
I don't know where Michigan State. Lansing.
It's in East Lansing.
Lansing.
East Lansing.
Lansing Pansing.
And East Lansing Pansing. Right. That would be the correct answer. Okay. Now,
well, I don't even get credit for that one. God damn it.
No, it's an example only.
East
If
Lansing,
you're at Washington,
okay. I'm with you.
If you're at Washington and you haven't had a proper bath in a while, you might smell like a blank blank.
Washington. Shit, where is Washington? Spokane.
I'll give you a hint for this one. You're looking for the mascot this time. If you're at Washington and haven't had a proper bath in a while, you might smell like a.
Oh, I had no idea. I'm spacing it.
A musky husky. And apparently that's a.
Yeah, I already hate your guts.
That's that's a. I can see we won't need page 2. Rips it up, throws it away. Apparently that's somebody informed me that apparently that's a furry code word among the furry community. No offense is meant to that either.
It must be.
I do apologize. Example number 3. So you've had an example of the city. You've had an example of the mascot. So this one's going to be an example that involves the name of the actual university. If you attend a private Christian university in Malibu and you're an exceptionally attractive person, you are blank blank at blank.
Super fine at Pepperdine.
There you go. My exact words were looking fine at Pepperdine, but I will accept super fine at Pepperdine. That's excellent. Okay, good. So hopefully you and the listeners have a habit of what we're going to do now. I've got 3 rounds for you: a super easy level,
we quit now,
a medium level, and a hard level. No, we cannot quit now because this is when it gets fun. Round 1. Question 1. You're a student at Texas A&M. And you've got an internship with Ziploc.
Oh, fuck.
You might bring your lunch to work in a blank blank.
Texas A&M and a Ziploc. Aggie baggy.
There you go. Very good, Brian. See, you can get these. It's easy.
My brain hurts.
Okay. You're a student at Oklahoma and you like to have a lunchtime rendezvous with your significant other. You enjoy having a blank blank.
Sooner nooner.
Very good.
That's easy.
Okay. You're at Colorado and your last date will not return your calls or texts. You're getting the blank blank in blank.
Let's read that one again.
You're at Colorado and your last date will not return your calls or texts. You're getting the blank blank in blank.
I'm still laughing at the last one. Sorry. Colorado. Blank and blank. Oh. Cold shoulder and boulder.
Very good. Yes. My son William wrote that one. All right, we move on to round 2.
It's an awful gene pool he comes from.
You're 3 for 3, Brian. The medium level. Okay, number 4. You major in agriculture with a minor in fertilizer at a large private university in Provo, Utah. You study blank at blank blank.
Read it again.
You major in agriculture with a minor in fertilizer at a large private university in Provo, Utah. You study blank at blank blank.
I stumped on this one. Don't have it.
You sure?
Yeah. Provo. It's going to be ortho and Provo. I have like 2/3 of it in my head.
If you major in agriculture with a minor in fertilizer at a large private university in Provo, Utah, you study dung at Brigham Young.
Oh shit. Okay. 3-1.
I may have meant that one. Go Utes. Okay.
The Utes is whatever.
Utes in Salt Lake.
Right.
You're a student at a private university in Atlanta, and you're interested in how we remember things. You study blank at blank.
Memory at Emory.
Very good, Brian.
4-1.
Number 6. You're at Wisconsin, and you've got guests for the weekend, but you can't put them up in your disgusting college apartment. So you book them a room at the blank in blank.
Blank and blank. Well, it's Madison, so something in Madison. Cabin in Madison.
You got the Madison part right.
4.5. Fuck. Nothing rhymes with Madison.
He's going through the alphabet, folks. I can tell. He's staring at his ceiling, going through
smoke
the alphabet.
coming out of my ears. Yeah, I don't got it.
You booked them a room at the Radisson in Madison.
Radisson. God damn it.
4-2. Okay, the last of the medium level questions. You're studying DNA at Oregon and come across a trait carrier no one has ever seen. You've just discovered a blank blank in blank.
Recessive gene in Eugene.
I'll take it. Very good. I said new gene in Eugene, but I'll take it. So, all right, you're at 5, Brian. All right, so you just need to get one more for the bonus question and 2 more to win. Round 3, the hard level. You're a student at a private university in Pittsburgh, and you desperately need to see a dentist because of your wisdom teeth. You are in blank at blank.
Oh fuck.
A lot of universities in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I know the one you're talking about. Shit. Read it again.
You're a student at a private university in Pittsburgh, and you desperately need to see a dentist because of your wisdom teeth. You are in blank at blank.
I know it. I've got it. Shit. No, I don't got it.
Because you're in pain at Duquesne.
No, yeah, okay. I was thinking of a different. There's someone we graduated with or graduated near us at Trinity that became a professor years later at one of the other schools in Pittsburgh. What are the other schools in Pittsburgh? I forget now.
Carnegie Mellon.
Carnegie Mellon was the one I was trying to think of.
All right. So you are still at 5. Okay. Right? Yeah, you're still at 5.
Yeah.
Okay. You see Mr. Roper. Mr. Roper. Mr. Roper from TV's Three's Company.
Oh, okay. All right.
At a military academy in South Carolina. He's blank blank at the blank. I am such a bastard.
Blank at the blank. Yeah, now we're podcasting silence now. Don Knotts at the Gamecocks. No.
That would have been great, but no, he played Mr. Furley.
Oh, Mr. Roper. That's right. Okay, you're right. Shit.
Now he's running the Three's Company, like opening credits in his head. He's staring intently.
Come and knock on our door. I don't know the rest of the words. Yeah, I don't. Me no Gotti.
You see Mr. Roper at a military academy in South Carolina. He's Norman Fell at the Citadel.
Norman Fell. Yeah, I wouldn't have come up with that one. Okay. I have to get one of the hard ones. Okay, this is my last chance, right?
This is the last one.
Okay.
You are a literal princess at a state. I don't know why you're here, but you're a literal princess at a state university.
As in literal, as in princess in the real world, not a princess in a book. Okay.
No, right. You are an actual living, breathing princess for some reason. for some reason, at a state university in Ohio. Okay.
Uh-huh.
When you finally take the throne, you'll be the blank from blank blank.
Oh.
So you know the first word.
Do I?
Right? Yeah. When you take the throne, you'll be the princess.
Joe Green from.
What does a princess turn into?
Well, if she's the heir to the throne, she becomes the queen. If she's married,
there you go.
But if she's married to the prince, she becomes the regent or something, right?
The consort. But
consort.
I won't trick you that hard.
Queen. So read it again. Queen.
You're a literal princess at a state university in Ohio. When you take the throne, you'll be the blank from blank blank. So you got the first part. You'll be the queen from a state university in Ohio.
State University in Ohio.
You'll be the queen from.
I'm literally rattling off cities in Ohio. Columbus? No.
It's 2 words because it's blank blank. You can do it, water boy.
2-word city in Ohio. Fort Bend. No. 2-word city in Ohio. Yeah, no clue.
You'll be the queen from Bowling Green.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that.
Brian, you went 5 for 10, but you know what? For the first edition, that's pretty good. That means you don't get the lifeline. I'm pretty sure
Bowling Green's isn't Bowling Green in Kentucky?
I think there's both. Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Bowling Green. Fuck you. No, it's not.
So that is the first edition of the college quiz for the first round. That's pretty good, Brian, considering that I'm a total shit. I'm not going to do this a lot. I just did it because because I wanted to, but because it's also the end of the semester. A lot of places, schools are wrapping up for the summer. So that's our college quiz, round 1, and the first chapter, and how Brian eventually will strangle me to death when I least expect it because of doing this to him on the podcast. And I know
I'll have a massive stroke. Running through College City now. No, yeah. So
for what it's worth, I
have to go lay down now.
my son wrote another one that I was like, I can't put this one in the. He wrote another one that I was like, I cannot put this one in the quiz because I've already got the hard levels done. So I've got to save another one that he wrote for a hard. Yes. So bone up on your universities, Brian.
Yeah, that was torturous. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I liked it.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, good for you.
Come on, sooner, nooner. Come on, that was funny.
Yeah, and you'll know that was the one I got the fastest.
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
So we'll see what you think of this.
Tmesis. The separation of parts of a compound word by an intervening word or words, heard mainly in informal speech.
Ever heard the term tmesis before?
I have not.
I stumbled across this because I realized that there are a whole host of curse words that are Mises, like abso-fucking-lutely. So when you when you cram
Gotcha.
a portion of one curse word into another, those are curse words that I use with great regularity, and apparently they're called Mises,
I like that.
Tmesis.
Fan fucking tastic was the first one that came to my mind.
Right. And there are ones that are not profane. A whole nother story, or shove it back any old where in the pile. I mean,
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah. So it doesn't have to be, crass. It can just be, adorable. But
Well,
there you go.
if it weren't crass, it wouldn't be on Dream Idiots. So
There you go.
Mises, I like that.
Yeah.
See, we aim to offend and educate. So
In equal measure, right?
thank you, Brian.
Do you know the difference between a hobo, a tramp, and a bum?
A hobo, a tramp, and a bum.
Yes. They are not the same, it turns out.
They are not. A hobo is someone who travels, is basically an itinerant worker, someone going somewhere to work. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Search of
spot on
occupation.
correct. Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Tramp, I don't know. I'm not at a loss to the other two, but I know that's how a hobo is different.
Yeah, you are absolutely spot on correct. So a hobo is a migrant worker, someone who travels a lot, typically by train, typically illegally by train, and who is someone who is basically always working or always endeavoring to work. A tramp is someone who is traveling a lot, usually illegally by train, and who's trying to work as little as humanly possible. And a bum is just a bum, doesn't travel or work, and is just, I guess is just a homeless person, I guess. So I didn't know until literally 72 hours ago that there was this distinction, and that I would have kind of interchangeably used hobo, bum, I would use them all the same. And so the hobo lifestyle and that term sort of arose at the end of the American Civil War. So you had a lot of military veterans, folks who were skilled, obviously probably a boatload of folks who had the equivalent of PTSD and who, couldn't probably handle regular employment. But they wanted to work, and so many Civil War veterans adopted the hobo lifestyle, and so they would hop on a train to Destination X, and these were folks that didn't want handouts, didn't want freebies. They wanted to work, they wanted to earn living, but they had that. I mean, I'm not using these terms appropriately or accurately, but they had, if you're a veteran, there are problems there that cause you to want to, that infuse a level of wanderlust, maybe, or who knows what. But by 1911, there were approximately 700,000 people in America leading the hobo lifestyle.
Wait, one more time. How many?
700,000.
700,000 in 1911. Okay.
In 1911.
So what you've got really is you've got this idea of wanderlust, and you said maybe PTSD. So these are folks who maybe got attached to people, especially if you're looking at the Civil War, right? You've got this new way of getting across the country,
right?
The train that's being set up. And then you've got people who really suffered and might have been fighting literally alongside their brothers or cousins, or against their brothers or cousin, and watching them die.
Absolutely. Right.
So you're not wanting to get too attached to people and places anymore. So you move from place to place, maybe, is what we're talking about.
Right, absolutely. I mean, the Civil War was hands down the bloodiest, most nastiest, most awful thing. That, I mean, it surpasses any other war we've ever been in terms of its brutality and its death toll. And any wound that you suffered during the Civil War was pretty well deemed fatal, because 1862, what was medicine like then? And so it was just awful, and the death toll from the Civil War was just staggering. So if you were in it, you faced a whole bunch, and so it makes sense that this might be the lifestyle you would choose after the fact. So hobos, the actual word hobo, the derivation, there are several different versions or speculations in terms of where the word actually came from. It could be ho plus boy. It could also be a shortening of homeward bound, the first two letters of both those words. Or it could be homeless boy, or it could be even homeless bohemian. And then even further, there's speculation that it's a reference to migrant workers from Hoboken, New Jersey. But nevertheless, your definition was absolutely correct. Itinerant workers who just traveled nonstop, either working or seeking new work. And so a few days ago, I came across this interesting blurb online referencing the Hobo National Convention. So this was an actual event that happened in 1889. It took a fairly lengthy break during World War I and World War II. But every year there is a Hobo National Convention. It happened just this past weekend in Britt, Iowa. It happens to this day. And hobos really adhere to a certain ethical code. And so in the 1889, you've heard of this before?
Well, no, it just makes sense. You've got to kind of do that to get along in that kind of lifestyle, right? I mean,
right, absolutely. And when I came across this hobo ethical code, I'm not a person who, I'm not religious. I don't subscribe to the bumper stickerization or catchphrases or, I don't know, the edicts or, I don't know, pop culture things that pop up that people will try to adopt as their new, I don't know, the new precept of life. I mean,
namaste, Brian.
Yes,
namaste.
Yes, exactly.
I grok.
Right. I mean, I know you to be a person who you certainly believe in, and I wouldn't say follow, but you have a certain level of respect for Quakerism and maybe a bit of sort of stoicism.
Yes, that would be correct. Yep.
Yes, and yes.
Yes to both. Yep.
Yes. Okay. Well, hobos prided themselves on a level of self-reliance and a level of fairness and honesty and compassion for fellow human beings. And so in 1889, they published at their national convention the Hobo Ethical Code. And when I read this, I was like, you know what? This doesn't suck. This is pretty good. And it was the first thing I'd ever come across like this online, where I was like, damn, this speaks to me at least a little bit. Some of the terminology is obviously a little bit antiquated and requires some explanation, but if there are 15 rules, I'm going to read to you, and we'll kind of go over them. But this is a pretty interesting approach, and in my mind, feels like a good approach to life just in general. So this is the Hobo Ethical Code in order. Number 1, decide your own life. Don't let another person run or rule you. Okay, strong start. Number 2, when in town, always respect the local law and officials and try to be a gentleman at all times. Fair enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Number 3, don't take advantage of someone who's in a vulnerable position. Oh, I'm sorry, vulnerable situation, locals or other hobos. Number 4, always try to find work, even if temporary, and always seek out jobs nobody wants. By doing so, you not only help business along, but ensure employment should you return to that town again. So sort of humility. Number 5, when no employment is available, make your own work by using your added talents at crafts. Number 6, do not allow yourself to become a stupid drunk and set a bad example for locals' treatment of other hobos. So again, looking out for your fellow hobo. Number 7, when jungling in town. So jungling is basically camping, where you found to hang your hat while you're in this city, because you're effectively homeless. When jungling in town, respect handouts, do not wear them out. Another hobo will be coming along who will need them as badly, if not worse than you.
Oh, okay. One per customer kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Number 8, always respect nature. Do not leave garbage where you are jungling. Don't mess with Texas.
Well, the scouting code of leave things better than how you found it. Right. Okay.
Exactly. Right. If in a community jungle, always pitch in and help. Great. Being a good steward. Number 10, try to stay clean and boil up wherever possible. Boil up, sanitize, I guess. Just speaking to general cleanliness, I think.
Sure. Hot water. Yeah. Get some
Right,
hot
yeah.
water on your face and your body.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
When traveling, ride your train respectfully. Take no personal chances, cause no problems with the operating crew or host railroad. Act like an extra crew member. Yep, fair enough. But again, just be responsible. Number 12, do not cause problems in a train yard. Another hobo will be coming along who will need passage through that yard. Same thing as above, basically. You're not leaving your life alone. There are others who will be harmed if you act up, basically. Number 13, I was kind of blown away this was in there considering the year this was written. Number 13, do not allow other hobos to molest children. Expose all molesters to authorities. They are the worst garbage to infest any society.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. No complaints there. Number 14, help all runaway children and try to induce them to return home.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy to support that one. And finally, number 15, help your fellow hobos whenever and wherever needed. You may need their help someday.
Sign me up. That's a good. Those are good rules for life.
Yeah, so go down the list and exchange the word hobo for people, and so done. I will sign initial do whatever. Done and done.
Well, and you see a lot of these precepts in a lot of I don't want to say organized religions, but do thine own self be true, be
Right.
good to your neighbors, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God, obey the local laws, that kind of thing.
Right.
And
We want a pitcher, not a belly itcher. No, that's not.
Now, Brian, I want to get serious here for a moment.
Uh-oh.
And talk about healthcare. Because as you know, I just underwent the rite of the 50-year-old last week,
Uh-huh.
and I had a colonoscopy. And so what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today is some stuff that's happened to me. In the fall of 96, I had settled into the routine of a second-year graduate student. I was living up in Salt Lake City. I was teaching classes to undergraduates. I was doing my research. I was learning how to write, and I was doing all kinds of stuff. I had a pretty solid group of fellow graduate students I hung out with. I had a good pub that was nearby my apartment, and I really kind of embraced the next phase of my life. And about this time in the fall of 96, I'd also developed the irritating need to urinate every 10 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
Ever happened to you where you're just
every 10 minutes? No, but yeah, I'm a couple of years older than you. I definitely have gone through those periods of time where it's like, holy crap, again? Right.
I couldn't sleep. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I was afraid to drink anything. I didn't know what was going on. So I called my dad, the doctor, and he diagnosed me over the phone as most likely having a UTI. He said, it's probably the result of dehydration and living at altitude, and you just need to hydrate more. So, this is what I would do. And he gave me a list of things I could drink. And he also said, or maybe you got it because you were doing something you shouldn't be doing. I assured him I was not doing anything I shouldn't be doing. And I promptly started a regimen of water, cranberry juice, and Peridium. Peridium is a medication you can take for these kinds of situations, and it turns your urine a bright orange.
Oh, nice.
And it stains anything it touches. There was no relief from this. So the frequency continued. And at this point, I was just at wit's end. So I've decided to visit the healthcare facilities on campus. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was met by a nurse practitioner who said she'd be examining me and taking my history and so forth to see if we could figure out what was going on with this need to make water all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She agreed that it was most likely UTI, but she wanted to make double sure and check over my medications I was taking and what my general health was. I was 25 at the time, so I was in pretty good shape. Certainly better shape than I'm in now, which is kind of round, but I was skiing and hiking and doing regular stuff that you do in Utah. So I felt pretty pretty good about this. She also asked a young woman who was definitely younger than I, but she was a nursing student, to sit in on my exam. I agreed, because we all got to learn, right? I didn't take regular medications back then of any kind. I was a moderate drinker, and I only smoked the occasional cigar, like on New Year's Eve or maybe my birthday, maybe 2 cigars a year. So, nothing that I was particularly worried about. But she said, in order to check out what's going on, I would need a prostate exam. And this would be my first prostate exam. I knew what it was and I knew what it entailed. And I wanted to play the hip, cool guy. Hey, no problem. So I agreed and I assumed the position. This will be uncomfortable, the nurse practitioner said. And she was saying that, I think, for the nursing student as much for me, because the nursing student is standing in the corner. And after a couple of minutes of doing what she had to do back there, she said, the prostate checks out okay. Great, good. So what's the next step? The next step is a urethral swab. You know what that is?
It sounds awful. Go ahead.
It is awful. And I said, I'm sorry, what? And she explained she was going to take essentially a cotton swab and insert it into my penis and rotate it to collect any specimens from the urethral wall around it. So swirl it around in there and see what's going on. At this point, somebody we've told to listen to this episode or listen to our show, this is the first episode they're listening to. So this is not... Okay, we're not a true crime podcast, and we are not.
and this is not WebMD, right?
It's not right. It's not any of these things. This is just it. It'll only take a few seconds, she assured me. So, taking me in hand, so to speak, she inserted the swab and started to rotate it, saying, "This will be unpleasant." I managed to cough out, "Unpleasant hell, I'd rather you stick your finger back up my ass." The nurse practitioner, again, to her credit, merely said, I know, it's not fun. Now, the nursing student in the corner had turned slightly away from the proceedings and was convulsing with silent laughter, tears streaming down her face, which just goes to show the old adage about comedy, know your audience, right? So I knew that would get her. So after this little unpleasantry, I cleaned up and got zipped up, and I would inform that the tests would be ready sometime the next day. I gathered what was left of my belongings and my dignity and thanked the healthcare team for their professionalism. The next day, I missed her call, but became worried by the message that the NP left on my office line. "There's something about your blood results we need to discuss. Please call me Monday." Now, if you were to hear that in the mid-90s, "There's something in your blood we need to discuss," where does your mind go, Brian?
Well, as you may recall, when I was talking about my blood work from many years ago, back in the 90s, I had the exact same experience. So
yes, you did.
It's sort of slightly panic-inducing.
Yeah, and it made for a very long weekend filled with, guess what? Lots of frequent urination. So I was stressed out all weekend. But when it came time to get the news, it wasn't all that bad. Turns out I had low thyroid levels. I've got hypothyroidism, and I would need to have a supplement to take as medication. So that's how I got onto Synthroid for my thyroid problem. I also didn't, strangely enough, have a UTI. So the next step would be seeing a urologist, where a lot of these same tests would be performed all over again. But eventually I was prescribed a blood pressure medication, specifically designed to help me with my bladder was telling me I had to go when I didn't. And it did clear up whatever problem I had. I had to go on the medication 1 or 2 other times over the last 20 years, but have had no real issues since then. So as I said at the beginning of this episode, recently turning 50, I completed that rite of passage, which is the colonoscopy. But I will admit that thanks to age or resignation, I had no wit available to me as I came out of anesthesia. No bon mot ready to go as I woke up from that anesthetic fog. The best I could do was turn weakly to the anesthesiologist and say, "Did y'all find my car keys?" But I guess what the point of this whole thing is despite the nasty nature of what I've just described to everybody, I wish that everyone could tell stories like this, because preventative healthcare is so important. And as someone who grew up tangential to the healthcare industry, one of the things that I had always understood was that because of my position, because my dad was a doctor, I had a lot fewer hurdles than most people did getting healthcare because my dad knew all the doctors to go to.
Sure, right.
And just as a matter of course, we have fought over healthcare and fought over healthcare. Healthy preventative doctor appointments, to me, will stave off a multitude of sins. And a lot of people in this country don't have access to that, as we know. And I would just like everybody to be able to tell that kind of story about the time they went to the doctor. And I know that a lot of people don't have that opportunity to go to the doctor because of time or circumstance or funds. And so when I look back on the time I embarrassed a student nurse, yeah, I'm a jerk. I was a jackass, but it was, she clearly laughed at it. She thought it was funny.
Right.
But there's a seriousness undercutting all of this, which is that healthcare is a human right. Everybody should be able to go to these appointments and, quite frankly, tell these stories. No? I mean,
right. I mean, absolutely. I mean, even with, as much as ACA was, I guess was a boon, it certainly was a step in the right direction. I can't tell you the number of people I know who are uninsured, underinsured, who don't go to the doctor. I had a friend years ago who I was giving her grief about not having medical insurance. She said, "Well, I have car insurance." Great, that's for your car. So let's say you find blood in your urine. Let's say you find a lump in your breast. So and then you're going to call up State Farm and say, "Do I have comprehensive coverage?" Like, no, you're not. What are you talking about? So it's essential, to make sure. And maybe not annually. The standard practice is to go see a GP at least once a year to get just a once over to make sure there's nothing significantly wrong. But there are seemingly millions of people who, due to the expense, due to the hassle, due to the whatever, do absolutely nothing. And then when there is a crisis, they go to the ER and are then potentially on the hook for tens of thousands of dollars, which they will never be able to pay. So no, your point is spot on.
Yeah. And there's a certain thing with the way we phrase it and the way we talk about it. What's the Affordable Care Act also known as?
Oh, Obamacare. Yeah.
Okay. If you were to take people, a few years back and say, how do you feel about Obamacare? Oh, I hate it. I can't stand it. Do you like the Affordable Care Act? Oh, now I like that.
Right. I'm on that. Right. Yeah. Marketing.
So, once again, proof that language has an immense amount of power. I didn't mean to gross anybody out with that story. If I did, that's just a bonus. But to me, it illustrates something that I have taken for granted, and that's good healthcare. Because I've been in a situation where I've been able to have insurance because I've had the kind of job or the kind of circumstance where I could go to a health clinic. Right. I made fun of this joke about getting the urethral swab, but how many people wish they could go to a clinic like that to get a simple procedure, if unpleasant, done, right? With or without an audience.
Right. Absolutely. And, and pay something that's reasonable, and pay a $25 copay or something that's not just, that requires financing. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, that's where I'll leave it. And
nice.
That's where I'll stop the grotesqueness. And I won't do anything like that to you or the listeners for some time. But I've wanted to share that for a long time. And with my appointment last week, I felt it was the appropriate time to do it.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So,
and also I would say, related to that, and this has come up a lot during the past 2.5 years and the pandemic, mental health is also healthcare. So, there has been
absolutely,
for decades and decades, there was this stigma and folks who didn't want to deal with whatever it was, depression, isolation, etc. There was a profound spike in folks that are facing these types of issues who hopefully, if what I've read is true, a lot of that stigma has ebbed somewhat, and some folks are definitely able to pursue the support they needed when maybe historically they wouldn't have bothered.
Yep. Absolutely true.
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
And so this one I stumbled across, and frankly, I have so many now. So I have such a backlog of curse words. I may have to start rolling off the lesser, less funny ones, and just start posting them on Instagram once every couple of days, because some of them are pretty funny. But this one I genuinely laughed out loud at when I first heard it.
Fuctangular. An adjective to describe a situation that is complicated and messy in multiple unpleasant and difficult ways. Similar to clusterfuck, except an adjective instead of a noun.
Damn it, Brian. Okay.
So sounds like we killed him.
Oh, God.
Mission
Brian.
accomplished. So it's not fucktacular, fuctangular. It's a very important but subtle distinction. You could also, this is sort of like foobar, and the references to fuctangular that go back sort of at least 10 years. But then when I first stumbled across this, it was the first reference I see of it. There's someone on, I think this is Twitter, a woman who is a teacher somewhere, named Hannah Blank, Hanne blank. So at Hannah Blank, she wrote as in the form of a tweet. One of my students has used the word fuctangular in an informal essay. I'm in the presence of greatness, and I'm stealing this word. And so when I first looked it up, that seemed like it was the original source of fuctangular, but then that says it was from 2018. But anyway, fuctangular. Complicated and messy in multiple unpleasant and difficult ways. We're planting seeds here, Dream Idiots. We hope some of them sprout and grow, but you never know.
All I'm thinking of is all the geometry proofs I had to write when I was in high school. That's
right. A squared plus B squared equals fuctangular. So,
okay.
All right. So moving on into other things here that are mostly silly after a week or two of a little bit heavier stuff. So, so you've heard of Brown versus Board of Education. You've heard of Roe v. Wade, and I'm bringing you another but lesser known legal action. Today we're talking about malaprop versus spoonerism. So word versus wordplay part 2.
God.
And don't worry, I'm not actually going to quiz you on any of this and expect you to fill in the blank. Maybe a tiny bit, but do you know the definition of either one?
A spoonerism is where you actually transpose like parts of the word, like instead of, my favorite is thermal underwear, Ermal thunderwear, right? Is that a spoonerism?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a spoonerism is when two words in a sentence or phrase, the beginning of those words are swapped. And a malaprop is basically when one word is swapped out for another word that is similar, but it's swapped out for amusing effect. So instead of dance a flamenco, dance a flamingo.
Gotcha. And that comes from a character in a play, right? Mrs. Malaprop, I think is where that comes from. I don't know.
You're spot on. When I first had the idea of kind of covering this, I forget who I was talking about this with, but someone said to me, hey, there's a character from some play named Mrs. Spooner? I'm like, oh, that sounds right. And then when I started doing the research, not quite right. So there's a character named Mrs. Malaprop in a play called
and that person committed a malaprop about a malaprop. Then
there, right? You go. It's like a meta malaprop. I don't know. So yeah, Richard Brinsley Sheridan had a play called The Rivals from 1775.
Yeah, that's right. And
so Mrs. Malaprop is she constantly is using the wrong word and swapping out one word for another that sounds close to the right word but is not. And her name Malaprop actually comes from the French phrase for inappropriate. I'm throwing this in because I thought this was interesting, even though no one else is going to find this interesting. But the fact that her name is the definition of the word inappropriate in French is an example of an aptronym, a name that fits some aspect of a character. So an aptronym. We had,
okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was sort of interesting. So some other examples of malaprops. He's the very pineapple of politeness. Pinnacle is what she meant. She's as headstrong as an allegory on the banks of the Nile.
Alligator?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's these are used quite a bit. I mean, so Mrs. Malaprop is in a play from 1775, but there are what are effectively malaprops before then because they're in Shakespeare in a few different places. Much Ado About Nothing, Constable Dogberry uses multiple versions of malapropisms. This constable says, "Our watchers have indeed comprehended two auspicious persons," when they said should have been suspicious rather than auspicious. Gotcha. A character in Falstaff says someone was indicted to dinner versus invited. In Mark Twain in Huckleberry Finn, Aunt Sally says that she was most putrefied with astonishment.
Petrified?
Instead of petrified, right? And then there are dozens of examples, and these maybe aren't quite as interesting in certain respects because these are things that were scripted and written as for a TV character. But Archie Bunker had a whole boatload of these for All in the Family. At one point, saying to his wife, "What I look like an inferior decorator." And then also said, in closing, I'd like to say Molotov instead of Mazel Tov. So, there are also, as you may recall, there are tons of these from various celebrities and politicians. Good old George Bush had lots of these, lots and lots of these. Talked about Texas having a lot of electrical votes.
Yes.
I just love this one. I mean, you can generally assume that people that fall victim to these are folks that are just not very bright. Mike Tyson was being interviewed in 2002, and a reporter asked him where he was going to go from here after he just lost a fight to whoever it was, Buster Douglas or whoever. Tyson replied, "I might just fade into Bolivian."
Fade into Bolivian?
Bolivian, yeah. Justin Bieber one time, Letterman was interviewing him, and Letterman said, "If you had any more tattoos, you'd look just like the Sistine Chapel." And Bieber replied, "I'm not going for the 16th chapter look." Started laughing halfway through it. "I'm not going for the 16th chapel look." No, not 16th, you ass clown. There are tons more from politicians, and actually, I'm not really sure if obviously Yogi Berra is there are dozens or hundreds of quotes for him. Some of his quotes
he's a
are
category unto himself.
Right, right. So I sort of set him aside. George W. Bush said in 2000, "We cannot let terrorists and rogue nations hold this nation hostile or hold our allies hostile." He meant hostage. Boston's mayor Thomas Menino, I don't know who he was talking about, but he referred to someone being a man of great stature in our city. He meant stature. And then another mayor, Richard Daley in Chicago, was talking about he enjoyed the use of tantrum bicycles. And then mentioned that
I'm picturing somebody dressed up like a mayor with a sash that says mayor, just screaming at people as he's riding on one of those old style bikes, the penny farthings.
But yeah, right. And then in reference to Chicago's O'Hare Airport, referred to the airport as the crosswords of the nation. Close enough. Gib Lewis, the old Speaker of the House in Texas in the 80s, supposedly said, "This is unparalleled in the state's history." He meant unparalleled, whatever the hell he was talking about. And then somewhere in in Sopranos, some character refers to having having to look refers to their last will and testicle, which I think's
That sounds like Polly Walnuts would say that. I think that was him, actually, that character. Yeah, I think, or maybe Christopher. I don't know.
I watched a grand total of 2 minutes of that entire series. I don't know those characters at all. So that was malaprop. Spoonerism is a verbal error that happens when someone, as I started to say earlier, when the beginning of two words are swapped. And so the initial sounds or letters are changed, and it comes out funny. And these are always sort of funnier when they're done accidentally. And so you have hissed the mystery lectures versus you have missed the history lectures. And they are sort of, I don't know, the fact that the people do this is, I don't know, it's just sort of silly. They're named for a gentleman named William Archibald Spooner. So this is a real person. This is not a person in the play. He was the Oxford Don, and he's an ordained minister at Oxford. And it says he was renowned for doing this. And but there are apparently very, very few examples of his where he actually did it. But what apparently happened is his reputation for doing this a lot maybe preceded him, and so students and other folks around Oxford started making them up and attributing them to him, even though he didn't actually ever say them. So there were collections of books of Spoonerisms. None of these things were things he ever actually said, but they were just allegedly attributed to him. There also was, I was doing some research. So Francois Rabelais in, again, much earlier, 16th century, also was apparently big into these as well and used them quite a bit. But it seemed a little difficult and esoteric to try to talk about French Spoonerism. So I'll probably skip that. So, but one of the ones that I think was allegedly attributed to Spooner, but was actually a joke, was he was supposedly said, "The Lord is a shoving leopard," instead of "The Lord is a loving shepherd." This guy died in 1930, and I'm trying to find the one that he was actually allegedly really did was he was in the pulpit, and he was announcing that they're about to sing a hymn. The title of the hymn was "Conquering Kings, Their Titles Take." What apparently he actually said was "Kinkering Kongs, Their Titles Take." Like, are you having a stroke in the pulpit? Can't quite figure out what's going on. So some other ones that around that same period of time, Lord of the Shoving Leopard, I already mentioned that one. Is the Bean Dizzy? Is the Dean busy? And these are sort of rife in a bunch of other modern day life as well. There is a comedy sketch group in Washington, D.C. called the Capitol Steps, which I'm sure you've heard of because they actually had a TV show at one point a million years ago. They have a regular routine called Lurdy Dies, featuring a main character called Resident Pagan. That's a takeoff of President Reagan.
Okay.
I've never seen this book, which is a little peculiar considering my mother ran a children's bookstore for years and years. But apparently there was a book that was published posthumously by Shel Silverstein called Runny Babbitt, a Billy Sook. Bunny Rabbit, a silly book. And the main characters were Dummy and Mad instead of Mommy and Dad. So again, all very heavy on the Spoonerisms. And then a few of them here that are just from music. There's a American musician named Rit Momney.
Okay.
A band called Punk and Drublick. Another musician called Com Trues. One called Mord Fustang. And I
like that one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. And it says an electronic artist named Son Holo. Like, okay. And then as sort of a compliment to Spoonerisms, there's a writer, this guy named Douglas Hofstadler, who came came up with the term, to complement spoonerism, came up with the terms kniferism and forkerism to refer to changing the vowels of two words or the final consonants of two syllables, giving them new meaning. And a couple of samples of kniferism that apparently were uttered on the air. BBC television newsreader once referred to police at a crime scene removing a hypodemic nurdle. A television announcer once said that all the world was thrilled by the marriage of the Duck and Duchess of Windsor. Close enough. And then 1931, a very early radio presenter, a guy named Harry Von Zell.
I know this one.
So the president who was president right before FDR was named
Hebert Hoover. Hubert Heaver.
Right.
Yeah.
He announced that here he is, ladies and gentlemen, our president, Hubert Heaver. That apparently is a kniferism.
It's even better if Hail to the Chief is playing behind that one too.
Right. How stupid would you feel if you managed to completely fuck that up? So there you go, folks. Silliness this week.
What's a forkerism?
Swapping out the ending consonants of two words for new meaning. I didn't even bother giving you examples of that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Those were just forkerisms.
That's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just read one recently, which was Samuel Goldwyn when he was on set for a movie. Felt they needed more extras. They were filming a Western. I can't remember what movie it was, but apparently he said, "We need more extras. Go get some Indians off the reservoir." So that would be a malaprop.
Right. The two that are oft repeated in my family is someone years and years ago, I don't know who it was, said one time they were so mad they were skicking and creaming. Which I always thought was great. And then I think one time when I was a kid, you'll recall that there was the Buttercrust Bakery in San Antonio.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Down on Broadway. Yeah.
Yep. And we were driving by, and apparently I said, "Ooh, can you smell the bed breaking?"
And if you can, there's something wrong with you. What is it?
Right.
I had a few that I actually said as a kid where I remember where I would flip words. And I don't know if that fits into this, but instead of a shortcut, I would say cut short.
Oh, really?
Let's take the cut short to get there. And then apparently I would refer to not the knee, but the Nebo. What happens in the car you leave at the airport when you fly to Vegas stays in the car you leave at the airport when you fly to Vegas. Here we go. In the 90s, Vegas rebranded itself as a family vacation spot. There were roller coasters going up, water parks, and other fun stuff along the strip for the whole family to do. This was quite the change from the Sin City imagery of years past. Although early Vegas, the one inhabited by the Rat Pack, had a certain class about it. One dressed up to lose one's money and not merely arrive at the blackjack table wearing flip-flops, cut-off jeans, and tank top t-shirts. I can't claim to have much class, as you know, but in my gambling days, my go-to casino outfit consisted of jeans, tennis shoes, and a hockey jersey. But at least I wore closed-toed shoes. As a regular visitor during this time, I failed to notice the brief changes to family-friendly Vegas. I spent my time playing blackjack, video poker, and when I was too tired to concentrate, slots. I rarely had time for shows or clubs or shopping. I frequented the older casinos along the strip, the Sands, the Frontier, and my personal favorite, the Stardust. They've all vanished, imploded in impressive fashion in order to make way for the next big thing. My mother is a gambler through and through. She always had the hot machines picked out. She got tips from bartenders, wait staff, and from watching other gamblers. She would often sit quite happily at the same video poker machine for hours until it hit. While I do not have that exacting patience, I do enjoy gambling. An even night at the blackjack tables is time well spent in Las Vegas for me. In what can only be described as a brief period of insanity, we decided to take a family trip to Vegas one summer. My mother, my grandmother, my uncle, aunt, 8-year-old cousin, and myself, then a 22-year-old college student. We traveled to the San Antonio International Airport in my uncle's minivan and flew Southwest Airlines to Las Vegas. Flights to Vegas are filled with camaraderie as passengers exchange gambling tips, stories of big wins and bad beats, and half-remembered nights. People freely shared snacks, drink coupons, and even sips of booze illicitly smuggled aboard. One flight out, the guy next to me hitched up the leg of his shorts to show me not only his underwear, but the vacuum-sealed bag of marijuana taped to his leg. Pot, he said happily and pretty loudly. They never catch me. He offered me some when we landed, but I must confess, I'm more of a marijuana taped to your armpit kind of guy. I cannot recall our overall luck on that trip, although I did hit a royal flush in a video poker machine for about $1,200, which was an amazing sum of money for a college student. My mother and grandmother would settle into adjacent video poker and slot machine areas while I would play blackjack or let it ride or even video poker. My uncle and aunt took turns gambling and taking my cousin out to do the kids' stuff. Flights from Vegas are never as fun as flights to Vegas, even for the big winners, because then you're surrounded by a bunch of sorry bastards. On the flight out, the same folks who had shared drinks and stories now sat sullenly cursing under their breath, grabbing free peanuts, and sometimes falling asleep on strangers' shoulders. The odor of the unwashed, drunken, and lonely borders on Dickensian on these flights. After the flight home, we settled into the van, which had spent 4 lonely days in the heat of a vicious San Antonio summer. My uncle drove with my grandmother riding shotgun. My mother and aunt were in the middle seat, and my cousin and I were in the very back, not properly buckled in, but instead perched atop luggage, or in my case, a cooler that my uncle always had handy for road trips. On the 30-minute ride back to our corner of suburbia, I kept noticing an odd smell, one I couldn't quite identify. I figured maybe it was me with 4 days of Vegas funk that even regular bathing can't eliminate. Everyone caught the whiff of this, even my grandmother, whose 60-plus years of smoking had dulled her sense of smell. As we neared our town, we hit the dreaded speed trap. Once inside the city, the speed limit dropped to 20 miles per hour, and the local police there loved to write tickets. My uncle slowed down as he passed the LDS church, where the speed limit went from 30 to 20 miles an hour. And at that precise moment, I figured out where the smell was coming from. It was the cooler I was sitting on. Found it, I yelled. And in what can only be described as the stupid action of my life up until then, I yanked the lid off the cooler to reveal the rotting raw chicken meat my uncle had forgotten to bring into the house when they first arrived. The odor that rolled forth was relentless and could have, in the words of my mother, knocked a buzzard off of a gut wagon. And there we were, hurtling along at 20 miles per hour, rolling windows down as fast as we could, with echoes of swear words bouncing off the inside of the minivan, punctuated by severe gagging. My God, my grandmother said from the front seat, choking back vomit. My uncle was cursing and driving with his head out the window. My mother was shooting me death glares while I locked eyes with my aunt, who, like myself, was trying not to laugh. As the vile fog continued to waft about the cabin, my cousin's face went through 3 stages. 1, amusement. 2, confusion. And 3, horror. I'm gonna, was all he managed before he bent over the seat and vomited, splashing the seat, my mother, and my aunt with his partially digested breakfast. My God, my grandmother said, as my uncle crept the speedometer up to 22, maybe even 23 miles per hour. This last leg of the trip was taking forever. Yet I was still trying not to laugh, and judging from the convulsions my aunt was having, she was holding back as well. When we finally came into a stop outside our house, the van doors flew open, and everyone scrambled out. My grandmother headed to the backyard without pause to smoke a cigarette. My uncle made sure all the van windows were open, and my mother took my cousin inside to get him cleaned up. Those two, my uncle said, throwing his head in the direction of my aunt and myself, both of us still shaking and crying. They get to clean up the vomit. Looking back on it nearly 30 years later, it really was the perfect end for a family-friendly trip to Las Vegas.
Nice. Very. I was trying not to laugh out loud. I didn't want to interrupt you. That was hilarious.
It is, and every word of it is true, which is what makes it it was one of the worst things I ever smelled. It was just absolutely awful.
Raw chicken in a cooler for 4 days, 5 days, 4 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
And you know what a long stretch that is from that Mormon church to my parents' house. I mean, that right there is
Couple miles,
a mile and a half.
A mile and a half. Yeah. But...
Yep. So anytime I think of Vegas, I don't think of big wins and bad beats. I think of raw, rotten chicken meat.
Nasty chicken and spewing vomit. Nice.
Woo. Well, there you go.
Excellent.
From the sublime to the ridiculous in a very short amount of time.
20 minutes, 30 minutes. There you go. Very good. Well, if you like our stuff, we're going to keep making these, and hopefully someone will listen to them. There actually is an email address, dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com, if anyone wants to say hi, give us, I don't know, feedback. And we'll keep making them.
All right. We'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Thanks.